And Druyan, before we talk about Cosmos, the new version that is up for Emmys and has just had a successful run on many different channels on television, I want to go back. Let's get aboard Neil's little teardrop vehicle in your show and go back, make it a time machine, and go back to 1980 to when you and Carl Sagan first presented the original Cosmos, which the New York Times called, and let me quote them, a watershed moment for science-themed TV. It wasn't just a watershed moment. It was an earthquake in American pop culture. I was watching it. I was as spellbound as everyone else. So let's go back there first to set up why this new version is all the more special.
Well, of course, you know, getting a second shot at it is a thrill because when Carl and I set out to make the original series, neither of us had ever done anything. We hadn't done any real television producing before. And so we were flying by the seat of our pants. And it was an incredibly fertile experience of ideas and visions. But to get another chance to do it now, to tell some of the stories I wanted to tell then but we didn't have room for, and to also tell stories that I've learned about since working with Steve Soder, that has been an incredible joy. And of course, the VFX capability is so much greater today than it was back in late 1970s when we were producing this show.
But you know what was the most captivating parts of the original broadcast, and in many cases the retooling that you've just done here, is not the special effects hand. It's when Carl back in 1980 would be sitting on a beach and holding a pebble in his hand and saying that the wonder of the universe is held here in this stone, and he would go on and he would talk, and he had such a wonderfully theatrical flair for selling his scientific idea that it was spellbinding. And that scene, I'm picking one at random, might go on for 4, 5, 7 minutes, let's say, and television critics are going, what are you doing? The formula for TV is 30-second scenes and move on and move on. And he would let the moment play, and he was such a brilliant speaker with such captivating ideas. It worked. Why do you think it was so revolutionary back then for that show? Why did the whole world go wow?
I think the world went wow and continues to go wow because science is the most precious thing that we have. It's the most well-tested, winnowed content that we have. The error-correcting mechanism of science is relentlessly trying to ferret out those things that aren't true, and here we are with that capability applied to the romance of life in the universe, to the vast expanse of cosmic time, to the mysteries that we have yet to solve. As Carl used to say, you'd have to be made of wood not to feel it. And as I say, give me someone with a beating heart. That's our demographic for Cosmos.
So when you sit down as a writer for a scene now for the redo that just aired, and is now on DVD this week, by the way, people at home.
And really airing it up.
All right, but let's say you're sitting home thinking, all right, now I got to explain string theory to people. All right, where do you start in order to say, because you not only have to explain it, you have to sell it, and you have to sell it with some pizzazz. How do you do that as a writer? What's your process?
Well, as you might have noticed, we did not actually do string theory in the new series, and there's a reason for that. No. So what happens is, I'm not a scientist. I am someone who felt excluded from science. But luckily, I've had this 20-year tutorial from the greatest science teacher who ever lived, Carl, as well as the chance to pick the brains of scientists. And I know if I don't understand it, no one else will. And so that's a good rule of thumb for me. But also, if it raises goosebumps on my skin, then I know how to tell it. And I don't tell it until I've searched out every answer, every vague aspect of it that I've yet to grasp. So it's a question of walking in the thought steps, your own thought steps towards understanding, and then bringing the audience with you.
Whose idea was it to use the little teardrop vehicle to have to send Neil around? That was kind of fun. I like that.
Okay, so it's a combination. Originally, in the original Cosmos series, we had a ship of the imagination. It was, it was actually, as I recall, cruelly lambasted by the critics. So I was reluctant to put it in the new series. However, at one of the Comic-Cons during the period when I was in the development stage, the ship of the imagination from the original series beat the Millennium Falcon at the Comic-Con Spaceship Smackdown. And Seth was absolutely, was one of the few things he was adamant about. He really wanted to see that ship throughout the series. So grateful to him. I'm so glad I listened to him. And we went to Ryan Church, who is the, the sort of cutting edge motion picture and television spacecraft designer. And I told him I wanted something that was biological, that was timeless, that wouldn't have a brief shelf life, because the original series is still selling briskly in DVD 35 years later. And what I wanted was something as timeless as that. And he came back to us with this magnificent ship, which I'm very proud of, because it really has that kind of almost biological feeling of a tadpole, or the grace of a surfboard. That spherical part where we stuck Neil is, it feels like a ball bearing or an eyeball in a socket. It can turn at will, and I really like that about it.
Now, what segment or part of this whole series gave you the most goosebumps? In other words, is it something like quantum physics, when you look over that and say, I'm never going to understand, well, science, the scientists themselves don't understand quantum physics, but we know that it has this majesty about it that redefines who we are and where we are, and that is such a magisterial idea. But what was it for you, the most awe-inspiring idea, I guess, behind this series?
Well, as I wrote, it was, in fact, it's funny you mentioned that. It was those manganese nodules. That's one of my proudest lines I've ever written in my life, was the idea that, and this is something that Neil says in the waning moments, or the last quarter of episode 13, that, these manganese nodules have this very thin layer of this element that comes from distant supernova. It grows at something of a tiny, tiny little nano portion per million years. These little rocks at the bottom of the sea, little pebbles. The difference between looking at a pebble and just seeing a little brown stone and being able to read the history of the cosmos inscribed within it, that is science. And that's the part that really gets me, because it's that our self-esteem as a species is probably at an all-time low right now. We messed up a lot of stuff. We're very cruel to each other. We starve each other. We do all kinds of stuff that's inexcusable. We torture other beings on this planet at will. All of that stuff. But we have begun to answer some of the questions of the cosmos. We've begun to accept our true tininess in the grander scheme of things. Accepted that we're not at the center of the universe. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the questions we ask. I'm proud of our aspirations to know the cosmos. I think that's one of the reasons why so many people have said that they find it a spiritually uplifting experience to watch Cosmos. And I'm hugely proud, boundlessly proud, of all the people I worked with to make this show. Seth MacFarlane, Brandon Braga, Mitchell Cannell, Jason Clark, Bill Pope. I could go on and on, 1,000 people working very hard for years to try to create a holistic picture of space and time, one that everyone can understand and feel.
Did you run into many people who say, I don't believe you. I don't believe what you said about that. That can't be true. The same way that people used to say the moonwalk didn't happen. It was done at a TV studio. And there are creationists now, of course. who deny the whole evolution, and you deal with that issue. But did you run into any of that backlash from people yourself as a producer who just said, that wasn't true, I don't believe you?
That's one of the big surprises of Cosmos, is that I wholly expected that there would be pushback on our position on global warming, or on our stand on evolution, or our stand on the history of the planet and how old it is. All of those things. I was fully expecting some vigorous kind of pushback, and what really shocked me was that the negative response was so meek, and there really hasn't been much in the way of "I don't believe you." I think we made in every case, we tried not to pontificate or give arguments from authority. We tried to demonstrate the logic of what we were saying. But I'm really excited because, if you believe those polls taken before Cosmos, a huge amount of my fellow citizens don't believe that evolution ever happened. They don't believe in global warming, things like that. It looks to me like the pendulum is shifting back our way.
Now, the one episode I missed was the one that was the most controversial leading into this whole thing, which was, how do you guys deal with Stephen Hawking's coming back going, well, I was wrong about black holes. And the night I was with you and Neil and everyone at the premiere in Los Angeles, and it was brought up, it was the first question out of the audience. They beamed it in by that video thing, and Neil danced around it beautifully and said, well, there's nothing we can do about it now, it's in there. Everything you say cannot hold up the test of time. Even 20, 35 years from now or go, when you look back at the first Cosmos, the science has rewritten itself, and we've learned so many new things. How do you plan for that when you do a series like this? And how did you deal with the black holes controversy?
Well, first of all, we say throughout this series, I have Neil say over and over again, this is our best understanding as of now. We don't know the answer to this question. We call it dark matter. We call it dark energy. That's a code word for our ignorance. There's no shame in not knowing. There's no shame in being wrong. In the final sequence of one of the last sequences of the final episode, it's a kind of celebration of all the great scientists who were wrong about something. There's no shame in that. There's only one thing that I think we got wrong in the first series, back in we were in 1980, was the age of the cosmos. The scientific consensus back then was that it was something like 15 billion years old. Now, in the intervening years, the universe has gotten a little more than 1 billion years younger. Now it's only 13.8 billion years. But I think one of the reasons that Cosmos, the original series, still sells so robustly and it has such enduring power, so that's about it. Carl really called, and Steve Soder, our co-writer, were great scientists who had a very astute sense of what was likely to be wrong and what was likely to be right. And in this, the thing about black holes, so Stephen Hawking, whom I respect and have had the privilege to meet, makes a statement. That's great. Well, that'll be tested the same way a less stellar, renowned scientist, their ideas will be tested, and we'll see what happens. If we're wrong, you can be sure we'll admit it in the next Cosmos, should we do such a series.
Now, what's been the response to this series so far? Just as you go around, talk to people, what do you hear?
Well, first of all, I learned a long time ago that nobody ever tells you to your face that they really didn't like it. People are gushing with tremendous warmth and fervor for the series. They love the series. And maybe it's just been my good fortune not to run into those who were disappointed, or not to run into those who were, I've only, been exposed to the most lavish, like looking on Twitter on Sunday nights when the show would run. At night, each Sunday night, it was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people sending a kind of mix of awe and love and gratitude. So I've just been lucky. I haven't run into the guys who really hated it.
Well, you got a few of them on the blogosphere side, where when the reviews came out, there was this kind of course. And by the way, I disagree with the criticism of people who didn't like the crudely drawn animation. I love the crudely drawn animation. I thought it was just retro chic in a very, very smart way. Whoever did, I don't know who you employed to do it, but I think they did a great job. And the fact that the some of the TV critics didn't like the style, I thought was. But anyway, in general, the reviews were very good, though, across the board.
Yeah. Can I just stand up for Caravello and for Brett Woods and the rest of the animation team? They were designed to be these little graphic novels. And it was Seth's idea to animate them rather than for us to schlep to Romania or someplace to try to, shoot these historical recreations. And I believe that they really together, they made the struggles of Claire Patterson or Michael Faraday really come to life, or Cecilia Payne. And I thought the acting in some of these animated sequences was really compelling. So I'd be happy to face off with anybody. Anything bad to say about that animation? I was thrilled with it.
Well, congratulations. I agree with you. I agree with you. They're idiots. So anyway, congratulations on all this. Good luck going into the Emmys. You've got so much spectacular technical achievement to attract those crafts categories. You'll do well there, and you're competing on the program side as well. So we'll be seeing a lot of this show across the board. Good luck to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. I love this conversation. Anytime you want to do it again, I'd be most happy to.
Okay, we'll make it a date. Thanks.
All right.